Everyone have a nice feast? Today's feast was cooked by the Ukrainian devotees. Actually, it was cooked by the Krishna devotees who spent some time in this life in the country called Ukraine, but eternally they're Krishna's devotees. So I've been asked to speak about the holy name. We just had kirtan, so I think we probably can just start to speak. If you know this verse, you can join in with me. Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Hare Nama Eva Kevalam, Kalu Nischeva, Nischeva Gatir Anyata. So, what is this verse telling us? Sorry, Ishan's having a kirtan in the corner there. What was that?
Nothing else can save you apart from the Harinam.
Anybody else like to give some of their realizations or thoughts on that verse? I'm sure you have some thoughts on it. Don't be shy.
The best and the easiest process of Kali Yuga is Harinam.
The best and the easiest process. Yeah. So Ram Lakshman was saying, first of all, that there's, I don't think there's something else that's going to save you in Kali Yuga. And Balashwar Prabhu was saying that it's the best and the easiest process. Anything else?
There is no difference between Nam, Hari's name, and
Well, that's the thing about these verses, it incorporates the whole philosophy.
Scientific.
You're just saying that. Microphone. Thank you.
3 times to give some more emphasis. That's the nothing else, and nothing else in the Kali Yuga.
To give emphasis, yeah. And it refers to 3 particular things specifically, isn't it?
Jnana,
Jnana,
karma, and
karma,
yoga.
So in the in the previous ages, then the methods of self-realization may have been something else. So what was the Yuga Dharma, or the method of self-realization in the previous yugas, is not the method here. What was available in Satya Yuga, Treta Yuga, Dwapara Yuga, is not the method for now. So there's remnants of these things from the previous yuga, like meditation, opulent temple worship and big sacrifices, but we don't have the lifespan to do the meditation which is required in the Satya Yuga. In those days, the lifespan is very long, so you get a long time to control the senses, purify yourself. It takes a long time to do that. In Treta Yuga, then sacrifices. Now, those sacrifices weren't just like sometimes people give up chocolate for a few days, or they decide they're giving up smoking for a month, or even in Hinduism, you know, some people give up fish for a certain period of time where they shouldn't be touching it in the first place, but it's another matter. So it's not just like that, you know, it's giving up something for a long, long period of time. Lifespan was considered very long duration. And then in Dwapara Yuga, the method of the Yuga Dharma then was opulent temple worship, and we don't have that same opulence. Now, it used to be that when they dressed the deities, they put new cloth on one day and that would be it. It would be given away. A new outfit every day, so much jewellery, etc. But because in Kali Yuga, well, in Bhagavad Gita, it's explained that grains are produced from rains, and rains are produced from yajna. A yajna is born of prescribed duty. So because people are performing the prescribed duty of making the sacrifices, then we're kind of living off the remnants of the previous yuga, or living off the remnants of whoever is doing some kind of yajna or sacrifice. Just like in the secular world, those who are living off unemployment benefits, they're living off of the grace of those who are taxpayers, isn't it? There's some kind of grace there on that regard. But if it overbalanced to the point where more people were trying to live off of benefits than were paying tax, then it wouldn't work out, would it? In Kali Yuga, the sacrifice which is recommended in this age is Harinam Eva Kevalam, or Harinam Sankirtan, or the congregational chanting of the holy name, and very quickly it brings results. So, and we can experience that, we feel that when we chant, we actually feel the clutches of materialism loosening on us. I remember doing some Harinam Sankirtan in Byres Road, the West End of Glasgow. There was this one guy who, interestingly enough, he was a bit of an interesting character. He knew about Krishna consciousness, but he decided to start his own cult because he's to put it in, what would you say? Basically, he knew he was a bit of a rascal and he just wanted to exploit people. But when we were chanting on the streets, he'd come over and he understood the value and he said, "Oh, thank you very much for bringing the chanting to the streets. It feels like it's purifying the atmosphere for everybody." So those devotees who have been on Harinam, sometimes they get some amazing experiences where people are spontaneously, the soul is attracted because Krishna, as Harsh was saying, is non-different from his holy name. So when we chant the name Krishna, he's there. And those who are looking for Krishna, when they hear the holy name, Golokera, Premadana, Harinama Sankirtan. So from the spiritual world, and not just the spiritual world, but in the spiritual world, there's many different levels of connection with Krishna. And the topmost level is called Goloka, which is the topmost spiritual abode, where Krishna and his eternal associates enjoy very friendly, intimate pastimes, and they're not tinged with awe and reverence. In the West, we're accustomed to approaching God with great awe and reverence. There in the beginning, so we don't treat God just like our mate or our buddy, or what would you say, disrespectfully. In the higher levels of devotional advancement, then one gives up on reverence, but you have to have it to give it up, to go further than that. Otherwise, it becomes jumping or sahaja, taking things cheaply. And sometimes the concept of God is that we have to follow certain rules, otherwise we're in trouble. But actually, those who are very intimately connected with God, sometimes they chastise God. They give him trouble. But you can't just immediately just think, oh, I fancy that, I'll do that. I'll just start chastising God. We actually have to qualify ourselves. Like there was one devotee said to Prabhupada, yeah, oh, I'd like to be this. And he says, first deserve, then desire. So we have to remember what is our place. We're here in the material world. We're caught up with certain things. We have to disassociate ourselves from these things which are keeping us in the material consciousness, bodily consciousness. And that's a gradual process which is recommended. Harinam Eva Kevalam, the chanting of the holy name. This is the beginning of it. Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu Smarnam, by hearing this Mahamantra, and then by chanting it, then we get remembrance of Krishna. So sometimes we're seeing that on the street when we go into the street and we chant, and some people are connecting immediately. They light up and they just want to be part of it. So there's one bhajan. I think it was maybe Hari Hari Bipali Janama Gainainu. I'm not sure, but if anyway, someone remembers which bhajan it was, they can remind me. It's the bhajan where Prabhupada gives the purport, where he's talking about Lord Chaitanya's having kirtan, and Shiva, Lord Shiva's there, Indra's there, various demigods and personalities are there. Does anybody remember which bhajan that is? Yeah, it's not that bhajan, though. It's another one. And Prabhupada mentions, this is going on. When the kirtan of Lord Chaitanya is there, then spontaneously people want to chant and dance. They want to join it. Because the soul, Krishna's means what's one translation for Krishna? All attractive. So the soul is naturally attracted to Krishna. And if we're not attracted to Krishna, we're attracted to Krishna's external energy, the material energy, which is also Krishna. There's a saying that there's nothing in existence which is not Krishna except for Maya, and that's also Krishna. But it's his separated energy, and therefore Krishna says, everyone follows my path in all respects. So whatever path you choose, we're relating to Krishna, but not the same result. So you could say it's just like, you could, there's so many government buildings which are sponsored by the government, such as perhaps an art gallery or a museum or a prison. So they're not the same, although they're both sponsored. They're both under the control of the government. So when we have seen it, that people spontaneously become attracted. I remember the first time I seen Harinam was in Glasgow, and generally when you see something you haven't seen before, your mind tries to grasp it, and then you try to see, where does this fit in? But I couldn't fit into a box. I couldn't fit it into anything. I was thinking, these guys just escaped from a loony bin. And they could just come kind of running around the corner with madangas and kowtows, shaved heads, robes, saris. And I was thinking, any minute now, someone is going to become chasing after them with the straitjackets to get them back in the van. But so that was my first impression. Then I thought, but they look also like they just dropped in from another planet. I was just thinking, what is this? So my mind was just blown. And then maybe about a couple of years later, I was standing in a queue to take my young brother to see some band that he liked to see. And I was standing in the queue, and he was quite young, so I couldn't actually just leave the queue and leave him there. But the Harinam Sankirtan party was coming down Renfield Street in Glasgow. And I'd heard a little bit about Krishna conscious movement, and I felt like I wanted to join them. I wanted to go and join in their chanting, and I was thinking, I hope they come over and speak to us here in the queue. I hope they've got some books and they offer some books. So later on, when I joined the temple, and some years later, I was looking back thinking, how many more people are like that? They see the party and just automatically they want to be part of it. And Krishna explains in Bhagavad Gita that even if one is unable to follow all the rules and regulations, if they're not averse to it, ultimately they will attain the same destination. So just that attraction to Krishna, then Krishna will make some arrangement. And so Prabhupada gives a purport to this Hare Krishna Mahamantra. He says this transcendental sound vibration of Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, is coming directly from the spiritual platform. It's not some concocted thing that someone thinks, oh, let's put Hare here, Krishna there, do another Hare Krishna, stick a couple of Krishnas in, then a Hare Hare, and then let's put a Rama in as well, just for good measure. Someone didn't just sit there and work it out. Not some speculator, not some mathematician. And basically, it's a prayer Prabhupada explains in his purport to the Mahamantra. Back in, maybe it was 67, they recorded this album called the Happening Album. It was the first recording that Srila Prabhupada did with some devotees. Was it 67? Something like that. Because George Harrison also got a copy of it. He bought a few copies and he was trying to give it to his friends. And therefore, he'd already heard about Krishna consciousness. And before the devotees came to London, he was already hearing about it and he wanted to meet with them. When he seen them on the street, then he approached them. And they were also trying to meet with him. They were going to the Apple offices, trying to get in so many different ways. They were trying to attract the attention. They were making cakes and all sorts of things. And then they met. And then a great friendship was made between the devotees and George Harrison. He did a lot of nice service. So Prabhupada says that one doesn't even have to understand the language of this mantra because it springs from the transcendental platform. And as such, even a child can take part in it, or even a dog can take part in it. So you might wonder, how does a dog take part in it? Well, I look at the mirror every day and I think that's the proof of it. I was a human dog before. Interesting, there's a book called Intellectual Animalism. There was a very small printing of it made. I don't know if any of you devotees have ever read that book. Have you seen it, Prajumna? Yeah, it's quite a heavy one, but it's talking about how the human beings, if they simply are engaged in the animal propensities of eating, sleeping, mating, and defending without any spiritual dimension to their life, then they're simply intellectual animals. And sometimes people would like to just consider they're no more than animals. But actually, humans have this ability to inquire. The human life is meant atato brahma jigyasa. Now that we have this human form of life, it's time to inquire. Jigyasa, brahma jigyasa, knowledge of the self. So this word atma means the self, but sometimes it's described as what else? Or body. Why do you think that's there? There's different descriptions. You think, well, atma would mean the self, that would mean the soul, right? Why does it say the body or the mind? Yeah, exactly, because some people's conception of the self is the body. Some people's conception of the self is a bit higher, where they realize that the body is temporary and that they are something more than just chemicals or some random bumping of chemicals which has evolved. And then the highest understanding of the self is that we're neither the gross material body, which is a combination of the gross elements, earth, water, fire, air, ether, or the subtle body, which is mind, intelligence, and false ego. So the higher knowledge is Brahma Gyan, or knowledge of the spirit. So when one chants Hare Krishna, then that knowledge begins to uncover. So I had a friend, before he came to join Krishna consciousness movement, he had found some books, and he was reading the books, and he was interested in the philosophy. But he, anytime it said recommending chanting Hare Krishna, he just skipped over that part. He thought, I don't know why that's there, that's just besides the point. Because he was thinking, I just need to read books, and get the knowledge. And then he came to one Gauranga festival we did in Bells Hill. And the festival went on for 2 hours. And usually we start off with kirtan, and then an introductory talk, then a bhajan and a dance, and another talk and a drama and kirtan. But it started off with the kirtan. It was the first time he'd experienced it. And as soon as because he'd read quite a bit, then as soon as the kirtan started, then it just became alive for him. He says, oh, that's why it's there. So this is there in Lord Chaitanya's, although Lord Chaitanya was the greatest scholar, even at the time he defeated the greatest scholars of India, Keshava Kashmiri, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, Prakashananda Saraswati, if there's any others that you might know. But these were considered great scholars, and historically their names are there. It's not just like this holds it's a nice big tale, and if you try to find out about it, you'll not find anything. No, those things were there. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya's house is there in Jagannath Puri. You can go and see it. You can see the place where Lord Chaitanya appeared in this form, the very room. And so although he was a great scholar, then he only left the 8 verses known as Shastakam, because the whole philosophy of the Krishna consciousness movement, the whole philosophy of taking the living entity who is completely entangled in the material world to the highest stages of love of Godhead and completely free from any entanglement in the material world, and to re-establish one in the highest platform of relating with God. It's in those verses. And the first verse is Cheto Darpana Marjanam. If anybody knows it, can join in. Bhavamaha Devagni Nirvapanam Shreya Kairva Chandrika Vitaranam Vidyavada Jivanam Anandam Vidivardhanam Pratipadam Purnamritaswadanam Sarvatma Snapanam Param Vijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtanam. Glory to the Shri Krishna Sankirtan, which cleanses the heart of all the dust accumulated for years. So Cheto Darpana Marjanam, the mirror of the mind or the heart, is accumulating some dust due to material association since time immemorial. And this is manifest in our various kind of misidentifications, identifying as a particular body. In this life, we might be male, female, or we haven't decided yet. Or we may have a certain nationality, or we may consider ourselves to be young, old, whatever. And these are temporary identifications. But and this is because we're not actually seeing what is the true self. When we look in the mirror of the mind, when the mind is already covered by material conditioning, even in this life, from the moment we're born, then we get conditioned. If you're fortunate, you've got parents who dote over you and they're around you, making you the center of attention. And this is natural. The parents want to give protection and give comfort and security to the child. So the child, and they teach everything from day one: toilet training, walking, talking, send it to school. So they try to do the best for it. And so the very moment, our conditioning begins, even in this life, what to speak of prospect of previous lives conditioning we're bringing with us. That's explained in Bhagavad Gita, that just as the air carries aromas from place to place, then the soul carries the different conceptions of itself from one life to the next. And some of these conceptions were taken from previous manifestations in the world. But the chanting of the holy name, because it's Goloka Prema Dan, from coming down from that topmost planet, Goloka, Prema Dan is a gift which is descending. Harinam Sankirtan, this chanting of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, is coming from the spiritual world. When we connect with that, then immediately the false ego is aside, and therefore we can't put it in a box. We can't conceive it because it's beyond material conception of our limited mind. You're trying to conceive of something which is way beyond the mind can't capture it. So when we take to the chanting, then the books we're reading and the practice of devotional service, then that becomes vidya vadujivanam, the life of all transcendental knowledge. So much knowledge may be obtained within the material world. That knowledge is changing. So, for example, perhaps what you learned about science or computers or some other kind of art or science or skill 30, 40, 50 years ago, it might be redundant now. Many of those things have been surpassed, or perhaps they're no longer applicable. But spiritual knowledge is always applicable. Therefore, the Bhagavad Gita, it was spoken 5,000 years ago. Someone could say, well, how could something 5,000 years ago be applicable today? Because it wasn't just spoken 5,000 years ago, it was spoken millions of years ago to the sun god Vivishwan, if we take Krishna's word for it. And it was applicable millions of years later, 5,000 years ago, because the science is an eternal science. It relates to this material cosmic manifestation always. And if we read that, we can understand how this world is working. And that knowledge of how that world is working could only come from that person who actually put it into motion. Just like the best person to tell you how that computer works is the person who made it, or how this camera works is the company who made it. Generally speaking. Sometimes somebody makes it, you have to give the directions for it, and then it turns out you have to get some other version of it which is actually better than the original person who made it, because they didn't consider everything which was there. Anyway, the point is that when we take to this chanting, our consciousness is purified, and in that purified state of consciousness we can understand, I'm not this body. I have no security in this material world. We're always looking for some security, but how can there be security? I remember when I was in primary school, I was considering what kind of occupation I could have. And like maybe most boys, I thought maybe I could be a fireman or a soldier or a policeman or a truck driver or a train driver. I was thinking of all these things, but then I was considering, but that one's dangerous because of this, or that one's got some risk because of that. And it came to the point where I thought, I can't see any job which doesn't have any danger in it. And then later on I discovered padam padam yadvi padam natesham. Step after step in this material world there's danger. There's actually no security, there's no guarantee of security, no guarantee of longevity. So therefore our security must be something which is beyond this material world. So Shreya Kairava Chandrika Vitaram Vidivadam. So Shreya Kairava, this benediction is there's so many different types of welfare in this material world. And there's so many welfare projects there which require a lot of endeavor, and people with a good heart endeavor to do some good, but sometimes don't even know if they're doing good. They may actually not be doing good. They may be doing some karmic injustice, or they may do some good, but that good may be temporary, or it may be undone by something else. In this world it seems easier to do something harmful than it is to do something constructive. But still, in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that one who does good is never overcome by evil, so we shouldn't think, just go with the flow, it's easy just to be bad. So there are different types of benefits we can have. And in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna also explains that many benefits in this world are limited and temporary, but the highest benefit is that which is going to benefit us beyond even this lifetime. In this lifetime, we can also experience the benefit. Vitaraga bhaya krodha manmaya mamapashita. So Krishna explains, by being conscious of him, we become free from attachment, fear, and anger. So what is this attachment, fear, and anger? They're linked. Because we're attached, then fear is there. If we're attached to some object, like we have our phone, right? We're attached to it. They say that it used to be that moving house and having a death in the family were some of the biggest traumatic experiences that people generally find. But now they say one of the worst is losing your phone. Because everything, their whole life's on that phone. Some people's businesses are run off it, their family, their contacts, their friends, and invested so much in their phone, and if they lose it, it's a panic. So we're attached to it. And because of that attachment, then fear is there. Or we care for somebody, and because we care for them, then we're afraid some harm might come to them. That's natural. And then if our phone gets stolen, then we're angry. Who took that phone? If I find them, then they're for it. So these things are connected, and it's actually in the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, Srila Prabhupada explains that the soul becoming unattached or detached means that not that we become completely emotionless, because it's natural for the soul to be attached, but what we're attached to. So we simply transfer our attachment. So Srila Prabhupada explains that just as an astronaut may go to outer space and they may be able to float around for some time, but because they have no resting place, they have to come back. So the soul, even if it gets in personal liberation, because its nature is to be active, then that inactive liberation also, ultimately they do come back even from that impersonal liberation. So therefore Lord Chaitanya, he's given the highest form of liberation, prema pramartha mahan, which is prema, or ecstatic love of God, which is way beyond just knowledge of God or existential knowledge. So undoubtedly in this material world we get some kind of pleasure, but if we limit ourselves simply to the pleasure derived from the senses, then we don't get access to the ever-increasing ocean of transcendental bliss, which is called Anandam Buddhivardhanam. And by chanting, then we get that. So just like last night, we had some kirtan and Om Sweet Om, and it was very nice. Everyone was chanting and dancing and having a nice time. And sometimes we do that for 4 hours, 6 hours, 8 hours, and sometimes 24 hours. And it doesn't. The more you chant, it's not like, okay, this is getting a bit boring now. Actually, the more you chant, the more you feel connected with it, and you don't actually feel the physical discomfort. You might feel it the next day because we maybe come down from that transcendental high, but we don't care. Just like sometimes when people are drunk, they do so many crazy things and they don't care if they remember it. But the next day they might wake up in hospital or a headache or something. They think, oh, I don't know what happened last night. It must have been a good night. I can't remember a thing about it. And then their friends tell them things. Oh no, did I do that? Did I say that? I better make some apologies, or I don't want to see that person again. So we embarrass ourselves. But there's no embarrassing when we're enjoying transcendental bliss from chanting and dancing and feasting. And this is actually going on in the spiritual world, this chanting, dancing, and feasting. This is the activity of the spiritual world. This is the eternal party. Whenever you've been to a party and it's going well, you think, wow, why can't we just have parties all the time? Why do people have to work? I was just reading this morning, Prabhupada says, in the spiritual world, we don't have to be troubled with working in factories and various other jobs, We don't have to be troubled by the fear of birth, death, old age, and disease. Because that is unnatural to us. We resist these things, isn't it? We don't want to die because we actually can't conceive of dying. So this chanting Hare Krishna is a very simple process, and it's been explained that it's so simple you could miss it, because sometimes we're too intelligent for our own good. We're trying to intellectualize something which actually should just be put into practice. As Atoksha Prabhu was saying, it's a science, and that science is like any other science. You hear some theory and you make the experiment, and then you see the result of the experiment. So if you hear that, okay, you chant this mantra and you read these books, then your material existence will begin to slacken, the level of satisfaction will improve, ultimately to the point where you're satisfied in any situation in this world. If we can't be satisfied in any situation in the world and we're depending on certain things for our satisfaction, then how free are we? Just like I was speaking with one of our regulars last night, and that person was explaining how they were feeling like they wanted to become free, and to become free meant to leave behind all the things they thought was going to give them happiness. And as bit by bit, as that person is cutting out those things in life, they're actually experiencing more freedom. When you're attached to something, or you're dependent on something, or you're addicted to something, then you can't say that you're free. People sometimes say that, oh, you just use God as a crutch, as if it's some kind of, you're lesser intelligent being, so you have to lean on God as your crutch. But then, what crutches do they have? So that brings us back to the same point, is it is nature to be attached. But if we transfer that attachment to Krishna, then because Krishna is eternal and he's non-different from his holy name, then when we chant Krishna and become attached to that chanting, whenever there's any difficulty, we simply resort to taking shelter in the Hare Krishna mantra, rather than try to take shelter simply in our intelligence. Of course, we can try to work things out. It's not like we just become robots and, you send your kids to school and it just says, it's 2 and 2, and the kid goes, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare. Or, we live in the world, we have to be practical. But Krishna shouldn't be our last resort. Krishna should be our first resort. Sometimes we try to work everything out, and then finally, when we can't work it out, like I had one situation here. A number of times about it, and he said, okay, yeah, I'll behave, I'll do what I'm supposed to do and stuff. And although we'd spoken a number of occasions about it, and each time, he accepted that he shouldn't be behaving the way he was, and he tried to do something about it. It didn't last, and then it went sometimes from bad to worse. And then finally, having tried everything I could think of, I prayed to the deities, Kodnitai Marpishashi. And the next day, he came to me with tears in his eyes, apologizing that he had created so much trouble. And I thought, well, why did I wait till the end to pray to Krishna? Why didn't I do that sooner? So this is explained in as we we're just talking about this verse in the Shikshapakam. This is explained in the 3rd verse. We talked about the 1st verse. The 3rd verse is Trinati Janeshina, Tarora Pisa Hestuna, Amanina Manadena, Kirtinesadahari. That once you try to chant the holy name of the Lord in the humble state of mind, thanking oneself Lord in the strong street, devoid of all sense of false prestige and ready to offer all respects unto others. In such a state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. So to be more tolerant in the tree means that The tree doesn't really have any choice. The tree is there tolerating. Today it's cold and windy. Other days there may be trees on this world just now who are experiencing drought and are so tolerant they don't protest. Or if they do, we can hear them. So in a way, the analogy is there to be more tolerant in the tree, which means that we choose to tolerate. We tolerate by choice, not simply because we're in a situation where we have no option but to tolerate. We choose to tolerate it. And this is one of the first lessons Krishna gives us in Bhagavad Gita 2:14. Anyone know that verse? Matra. Yeah. Matra spashasta konti. Shoot. Toshna shudakara. Agamapaino nichas tamsatikashubharata. So we have to learn to tolerate. And sometimes people want to change the whole world rather than change themselves, isn't it? And how many people have started the whole military campaign to usurp another land simply because they can't tolerate their neighbours' views, customs, cultural peculiarities, ways of living, ideals, or whatever. They decide, okay, we're going to change everybody to our way of thinking. So they get the bows and arrows, the spears, the guns, whatever. And then they may conquer. There was that Alexander the Great, right? I don't know if he gave himself that name, but I'm sure there's a lot of people didn't think he was that great. And where is he now? You know, his name is there, but where is he? So anyway, certainly his journey consisted of a big military campaign where he was conquering over so many places. And then someone asked him, okay, say you conquer everything, then what will you do? What was the reply? Does anybody remember that? If you conquer everything and then in your old age, what will you do? Now, I'm asking because I can't remember exactly myself. I was hoping that somebody did, but it was something to the effect that then he would basically just live a peaceful life with his family, etc. So the person says, well, why don't you just do that now? You're really in big trouble. But he had to conquer the whole world to feel like he had achieved something or to feel that he had some security. And someone comes along, so he's just built a big sandcastle. Someone else comes along, kicks that, and puts another one in its place. So this material energy is endlessly mutable. And Krishna's external energy, Maya, gives so many ideas for us to remain in this material world and gives us some purpose to be. We have to think, we chase something, we have to achieve something. But what is it to achieve, which is going to have a real lasting benefit in this world? So the better thing to achieve is internally, that we go spiritually. And that's a bit more difficult than just making a life endeavour to something material, because we have to give up something. But the giving up of our false ego actually is a bit like the child has a toothache and the tooth has to come out, causing some pain. It's causing some misery, sleepless nights, but it doesn't find the prospect of going to the dentist to get the tooth taken out. But in order for it to become healthy and not spread to the rest, then it has to happen. And sometimes the parents say, okay, like it or not, you're going. And then usually if the child is resisting, then it comes to the point where it's suffering so much that it's willing to go. And sometimes that's our case as well. And there's 4 types of people who surrender to Krishna. Does anybody know that verse? Yeah, so there's 4 types of people who approach Krishna. Or if you have another name for God, then still the same principle applies. And what are those in English? distress, desire of wealth, inquisitive, and one in search of knowledge of the absolute. So it's considered that of those four, three are on the material level, and one is in search of knowledge of absolute truth, is the one who is transcendental. Sometimes we even approach Krishna for some material thing, and Krishna doesn't mind that. He'll say, Kama, Savo Kamo Vamoksha Kama Udavadi. Whatever you desire, just come to me anyway, because I can satisfy your desire in such a way that you give it up and you'll get the higher thing. And then there's also, so often, because our spiritual vision is not so clear, then it takes us to suffer before we actually approach. Just like when I was a young man, I worked in a garage, and there was one old guy there who said that in the second, he asked me if I believed in God. I said I wasn't sure. And he says when he was in the army, Second World War, and before going out to fight, he says there was everybody was down on their knees praying to God. Like they say, there's no atheists in the foxhole. There's no atheists in the trenches. And Srila Prabhupada explains that it's natural for the soul to look for God, to take shelter in God when they're in difficulty. It's natural because we have that eternal relationship. Just like it's natural for the child to call for the mother when it's in difficulty. And Srila Prabhupada explains that in the purport to the Mahamantra, that this chanting of Hare Krishna should be done in the humble state of mind, and it should be done in the mood of the genuine cry of the child for mother. And this Hari means Radharani or Mother Hara, the divine feminine energy of the Lord, the topmost personality in the spiritual world, actually. And so she helps us because she's the greatest devotee of Krishna. She helps us. It's explained that she has always one eye on Krishna and one eye on the living entities. She's compassionate. So Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, here on the right-hand side, in the golden yellow outfit, then it's described he is Maha Vadanyaya Avatar, or the most merciful incarnation, because he's in that mood of compassion and he simply wants to connect everybody with Krishna. He's not looking for anybody to qualify themselves other than just chanting Hare Krishna. So in a couple of time, 2 weeks today, we'll have a nice big festival for the celebration of the appearance of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, or Gaura Purnima, this incarnation of God, of the most merciful incarnation, where simply this, when God does something, he does it big time. Not like us, some of us are small time, some of us are bigger time. Actually, when he does something, when we create something, then, we have some limited potency to create. But when the Supreme Being creates something, then that potency can be seen as unlimited. So just like this, Sir Isaac Newton, he had his assistant was atheist, and he didn't believe that there was some creative force behind everything, that there was creator. So Isaac Newton was considering how to convince him, so he made a model of the solar system. He made a planetarium with the relevant scientific distances between the planets. And when his friend came in to see him the next day, he says, "Oh, this is an amazing model. Who made this?" Nobody. He was just here. When I got up this morning, just appeared. He says, "Oh yeah, don't be silly. Was it you?" He says, "No, it just appeared." So he insisted. And Isaac Newton says, "So just as you insist there must be a creator of this model, what about the real thing?" So he was basically demonstrating that intelligence and consciousness is behind this conscious, this. And so I kind of wavered off the point. If anyone can remember, they can remind me. Why was I saying that? Something. Oh yeah, so what I was saying was that Lord Chaitanya in his most merciful incarnation, so when he is compassionate, then he's compassionate without any bounds. His compassion knows no bounds. So just like historically speaking, when Lord Chaitanya was here 500 years ago, then the caste system. So in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna talks about Varna Ashram, the Varnas and the Ashrams, the 4 Varnas and the 4 Ashrams. And he says, Guna Karma Vibhaga Saha, that by people's qualities and by their activities, that determines which Varna or Ashram they're in, not by birth. But some people try to monopolize that and make it by birth. Therefore, Lord Chaitanya and Lord Chaitanya's Parampara, with Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Srila Bhaktivedanta and Srila Prabhupada, then they were smashing that caste system, because if someone is born in a low-class family, but they've got the qualities of a Brahmin, then Krishna says they're a Brahmin by quality and by their activities. But if someone's born in a Brahmin family, but they've got the qualities of a Sudra, then that's the natural inclination. And it's not necessarily a case of, oh, well, I don't want to be in a low rung of society. You know, if I say, okay, you got to choose which body part you're giving up today, you think, well, I'd rather not give up any, thanks. I want all my arms and legs and my stomach and my brain. You know, you're not getting any of those parts. So this is the social body. In order for the social body to work together, there has to be the legs, which are the Sudra, the arms, the stomach, the brain. And if the parts of the body go on strike, and like Hitoksha did this nice drama called Senses Strike, if the hand decides, okay, you know, how come the stomach gets to enjoy all the food? I'm not putting it in the stomach. I'm keeping a hold of this food myself. You know, getting a bite. I'm enjoying it. Then the whole body's going to become weak. But when the body works together, and everything is nourished. So this Varnashram system is there so that people's natural inclinations, people can be engaged in their natural inclination, and therefore people will be satisfied according to their psychophysical nature. But unfortunately, often the educational systems don't allow for that. And I just heard recently there was one boy, well, man now, actually grown man, and he's a topmost ornithologist. Everybody knows what ornithologist is. Bird watcher. But not just, you know, somebody sits in the bushes with the binoculars, but he's a topmost authority in this. And it all started because he had no interest in school. He couldn't find an interest, so he used to dodge school, or dog it, as we used to call it, or play truant, or skip school, and he'd go to the woods and spend his time there just wondering what to do with his life. And then this one beautiful woodpecker came in front of him. It was like green and red, and he was amazed by the colours, and he took an interest. So he went to the library, got some book on birds, and then he educated himself. Now he's become like a world leader in that. And someone was interviewing him saying, "Oh, we're sorry that the education system failed you. It'd be nice if people's natural talents and inclinations could be recognised and fostered." And he says, "Well, that's okay. I take it as a blessing. Otherwise, you know, I wouldn't have found my way." But nevertheless, so this is what Krishna is saying. But even despite our temporary attractions, then we all have an eternal attraction, which is connected through service, eternal service. And so this Hare Krishna mantra is basically saying, "My dear Lord, my dear devotional energy of the Lord, please engage me in your devotional service." And as this is considered to be our eternal constitutional position, our eternal Dharma, Sanatan Dharma, and not simply our current psychophysical Dharma, then it surpasses all the different stages of physical, mental, social, and takes us onto the higher platform. So therefore, this is seen as the prime benediction for humanity at large, because it's giving us, even though we may feel ourselves unqualified, in Lord Chaitanya, he is being most merciful. He's not considering who's eligible and who's not. He's saying, everybody just chant, everybody come and chant. Doesn't matter who you are, where you've been, what you've done. Just put it all behind you and chant, leave it behind and come back and join the party. So this is what we're being invited to do. Back from Thakur writes this song. I think I finish at past, is that right? Okay. Jeev Jago Gora Chanda Bole Kota Nidra Jao Maya Pisa Chira Koli. So Jeev or Jiva means the soul. Jago means to wake up. Gora Chanda Bole. Lord Chaitanya, the golden incarnation, Gora, Chand, golden moon. He's saying, wake up, sleeping soul. So long you've slept in the lap of the witch called Maya. So just like, we hear these tales where the witch can put someone under a spell and then they control them by that. So we're under a spell of illusion, thinking this body to be the self. But when we chant, then this awakens us. It's like a transcendental alarm clock. This chanting awakens us to our true nature, to our default nature, our pure nature, which we don't have to learn. It becomes natural. So I'll just finish with this. When I started my inner search for meaning and belonging and spiritual connection, then I was a bit confused because there were so many people saying this and that, and it seemed like they were either saying the same thing, didn't realize it, or they had conflicting views, and if you pick the wrong one, then you're doomed. And how do you know which is the right one, which is the wrong one? So it was a bit confusing, and I thought, okay, what I'm going to do is just listen to my conscience, follow that. So I started doing that, and I found that by doing that, then the next thing would become apparent, and then the next thing. Then I came across Bhagavad Gita, and it was like, wow, that's just everything. That's everything what I've been doing according to my conscience. And then it talked about Paramatma in your heart, the Lord within, and the spiritual master is external manifestation of the Paramatma, the Lord within. And then not only did it strike with me that all the things I'd been following and improving, even through struggles of leaving things behind, then not just was it ringing a bell with those things, but also it was showing me, and this is the next step, and this is the next step. This is what you can replace it with. So then I didn't find anything higher than that. And it didn't contradict anything. It made me see all the other things in the same light, that actually the truths can be found in so many things, but you'll also find truths in the Bhagavad Gita you won't find elsewhere, just as in a full unabridged dictionary, you'll find the full explanation of words which you won't find in a pocket dictionary. You might find basically the same meaning, but you won't find all that. So I would just stop here if anyone's got any quick questions or comments. We've got 2 minutes. Sparno.
We read that Krishna at the stage of Kali has descended in the form of his holy name. That Krishna in the age of Kali has descended in the form of his holy name, and a single name of Krishna has the power to liberate the entire universe. That Krishna has invested his energy into the holy name, and that Krishna is non-different from his holy name. Sounds like a silly question, but what does that mean? Because sometimes when I chant, it's a bit of a chore. So why am I not able to perceive these facts, these truths?
Yeah, it's a very good question. Anybody else experience that? So that's quite applicable. I think Hokshias could give a nice answer from the Nectar of Instruction about the sugar candy and jaundice patient. I'm asking you because I never learned that verse.
Yeah, and what it says is the jaundice of ignorance makes that which is sweet taste sour. So there's a stage in between tasting the pure holy name, which is Nama Parad, and then Nama Bas, and then finally then we start to taste the sweetness. So the challenge is, can you persevere through the intermediary stages to get to the sweet taste? That's why association is very important, because if you're associating with devotees that are experiencing the sweetness of the holy name, it spurs you on. Okay, it's keep going, you know. So if they say I was also the same in the beginning, when I'm experiencing it sweet now, then that encourages you. Okay, so that's just part of the territory that you have to go through, that dry stage, and then eventually it starts to taste sweet.
Thank you. So that verse is saying that if one has jaundice, whoever has jaundice, so it's described that the cure for it tastes very bitter. But if you continue to take that sugar candy, then you'll notice that your jaundice state sugar candy then becomes sweet again. So similarly, when we chant Hare Krishna, then to begin with, because we're accustomed to another form of pleasure in life, or we're accustomed to taking shelter in our mental concoctions, etc., then we don't necessarily maybe experience all the time the chanting to be sweet. Sometimes we do. A little bit of purification might be there. Just like if you're making ghee, you put the butter in the pot, you put the heat under it, and as it melts, then some impurities come to the surface and you remove them. But it's not over yet. You have to keep it on the heat, and then more impurities will come. So sometimes when some impurities are coming up, we might not be experiencing or relishing chanting, but you keep chanting and then it'll go away. It just reminded me of another interesting one. One disciple of Srila Prabhupada went to him and said, "Oh, Prabhupada, when I chant, I see this red light." And he says, "Just keep chanting, it'll go away." Because that's not what is to be obtained. But if we just keep chanting, then anything which is inauspicious will go, because Krishna is Sarvamangalam, he's all auspicious. And that which is inauspicious, by the chanting, sometimes that's rising to the surface, but we keep chanting it, and then that will leave our consciousness. We're getting purified from it. And then we think, oh, that's great, I'm over that. But don't think it's over yet. There'll be more to come. We just keep going with it. And just like sometimes you may get some medicine, and the medicine might not be so palatable, but when you start to see that your disease is diminishing, then you think, okay, I'll just keep taking the medicine because it seems to be working. If you stop taking the medicine and the disease comes back, and you go to the doctor and say, "Oh, I'm still sick," he said, "Do you take the medicine?" "No, I stopped." We'll keep taking it again. Of course, whether we have faith in allopathic medicine or not is another matter, but or any medicine, karma may be involved. Okay, any other questions or comments? Is that okay? So just keep chanting. Whatever you're going through, just remember this too will pass. And in due course of time, because we keep that consciousness that this will pass, then this verse, Krishna is telling us to learn to tolerate, then we will learn to tolerate, because we'll see that everything has a beginning and an end. Good, bad, has a beginning and an end. But if we keep our consciousness fixed on chanting, we transcendentalize, then we're actually transcending. Transcending isn't some kind of airy-fairy thing where you wake up one morning and you go to get out of bed and your feet aren't touching the ground, and you don't have a shower because you smell like roses. It's not like that. It's basically we're learning to identify with the soul, which is beyond the ever-changing effect of the material world upon us. We see it, but we don't identify with it. Okay, thank you. ISKCON Guru Govinda ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Shri Shri Konitai Mahaprasad ki. And just to let you know, the big deities will be back on the altar soon. Some remedial repairs regarding the work which was done over the last few months the lacquer was taking some time to dry, but looks like that's going to be fine by Gaur Purnim time. So, like it or not, the dates will be back on now or anyway. Okay, so thanks for your patience. And the next thing in the program is Kirtan. Okay. Okay, we'll just invite you to chant some Kirtan.